man was walking in the woods one day when he saw a bear out of the corner of his eye. He stopped, said a silent prayer. God, I know you can do all things. Will you please make this bear a fellow Christian? The bear caught up to the man, placed his paw on the man's shoulder, and said, Brother, will you pray with me? Dear God, for this meal that I'm about to receive, make me truly thankful. This is The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilsman. Welcome to The Christian Bear. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Hilskamp. I'm so happy to have you join me in this conversation. Thank you for making the time. The Christian Bear is a space for reflection, faith sharing, public theology, and lively discussion. I don't claim to know it all, but hopefully in conversation we can get closer to the truth and co-create our truths. Are you enjoying The Christian Bear? Please give the podcast a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're using, and think about adding a short review. Also share this episode and the whole podcast with your friends and other people in your network. Consider contributing to my Patreon, the link for which is in the episode information. All funds raised through Patreon go to supporting the costs associated with producing and hosting this podcast. Now lean in and enjoy this episode of The Christian Bear. Welcome to episode 56 of The Christian Bear. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming back Sheri Lytle to the podcast. A former professional in corporate human resources, Sheri is currently training as a sommelier and recently launched a new business, CultivArt, pairing wine with art history. Join me in welcoming Sheri for a consideration of big questions. Again, welcome to this episode of The Christian Bear. I'm happy to have my friend Sheri Lytle with us. Before we get started on our round of big questions, I want to give Sheri a moment to introduce herself.
Thanks, Ben. I'm excited to be here again. Like you said, my name is Sheri Lytle. I am currently pursuing a career as a sommelier, which is a wine expert. So I'm launching a business called CultivArt, where I partner with a friend of mine and we provide art and wine experiences. This is not to be confused with the paint and wine nights that a lot of places offer. My friend Joanne is an art historian, and we offer kind of group discussion and chats and wine tastings that revolve around art. And it's a lot of fun to get together, drink some delicious wine, view some beautiful and exciting art, and learn something while having a great time. So I also serve as a board member to LOVEboldly. I work with Ben as the treasurer, and love the exciting directions that we've been taking lately.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So to get us started with our questions, if you could have one song play every time you walk into your home, what would it be?
Oh, man.
Multiple answers are fine.
Okay. My gut instinct is there was in Philadelphia, there was one of the news stations on the ABC affiliate called Action News, and they had a really exciting, and to this day, they have a very exciting kind of introduction to their newscast, and people use it in Philadelphia for weddings to introduce the bridal party. I would play that one. The other one I would probably, because nobody would know that one except unless you're from Philadelphia, and my friends from Philadelphia would know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's a very exciting kind of trumpet blaring introduction to a show. I don't even know who sings it. I got a feeling that tonight's going to be a good night. Whenever I start off a playlist or start off a gathering, I love starting off with that song, because it's just like I got a feeling tonight's going to be great. So every time I walk in the door, I want that song playing because it's like, yeah, tonight's going to be awesome. And I'm not a fan of toxic positivity, but I do really love that song.
That's Black Eyed Peas, right?
Yeah, I think it is Black Eyed Peas. Yeah.
Awesome. What is a relatively basic task that you find very difficult?
Putting away my laundry, folding and putting away laundry. For some reason, I can put it in the washer, I can put it in the dryer, I can put it in the basket, carry it upstairs, and sometimes I can even fold it. But for some reason, it will sit in my laundry basket for days, just in the laundry basket. And I have to walk 2 feet to put it away in my closet or to put it into my chest of drawers, or to put towels away in the bathroom. But for some reason, they will just sit in a laundry basket for days. And I guess kind of along those lines, it's the same thing like emptying the dishwasher. For some reason, like taking things and putting them away rather than just leaving them clean where they are seems very tedious to me.
I hear that. I hear that. What is your biggest pet peeve?
um, I feel like I want to say like mean people, but not like, I feel like that's too generic. Um, People that are unkind or unfriendly for, you know, reasons of their own kind of prejudices that, well, I don't like that person because they, whatever random reason, without really knowing that person. Um, yeah, I mean, I meet people and they, sometimes people rub me the wrong way, but then I find myself kind of going out of my way because like, okay, well, it's probably my knee-jerk reaction is to say, okay, it's probably me. If there's something that I don't like right away about this person, that's where my mind goes. But then after a little while, I might realize, okay, this person's a jerk, but I'll still be nice to them. Like I never understood the point of being rude. Like it's something that's really acceptable, especially on social media. I just don't understand the point of being insulting and being rude and being unkind. And that's probably my biggest pet peeve.
Got it. Got it. Is it more important to understand or be understood?
I think it's more important to understand. Um, I, I, it's frustrating to not be understood. Like when people just don't get where you're coming from or don't understand or disagree with your perspective. It's an incredibly frustrating thing, and you often want to find yourself wanting to prove yourself. But I find that that's much easier to accomplish if you understand the other person or the argument or whatever the discussion, if you know where they're coming from and understand their background, understand where they get their information, understand where they get any kind of bias, where they get their opinions, what life experiences they have. I find that it's easier to communicate with people and be understood if you understand them and understand how to like speak to them in a tone and with a message that they understand, if you know where they're coming from, if you know that you're talking, for example, as a Christian, if I'm talking to someone who has suffered massive church trauma, um, the last thing I'm going to do is start bringing up, well, forgiveness, and you need to, get back to church, and that's the last thing someone who's gone through trauma needs. So I think it's better to understand people. I mean, yeah, I love to give advice. Everybody loves to give advice. Everybody thinks that they have all the answers, but advice can not only be unuseful but harmful if you don't understand the person that you're talking to.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. If you could get rid of one U.S. state, which state would it be and why?
Florida, to get rid of Governor DeSantis.
Almost everyone on this series has said Florida. Not all for the same reason, but basically the same reason.
And it's a shame too because I love the weather in Florida, but like if you drive through Florida, it's congested. Like most of it is just congested. A lot of it is really like, yes, you've got your affluency there because the rich people flock to retire there to hide from, the death taxes, and they don't want the government to take all their money when they die. Um but then you've got this really, this other culture of poverty and minority. And, if you drive through a lot of these populated areas, you just see poverty interspersed with all the wealth. And it's such a dichotomy of, you've got the ultra rich there right butt up against, it's like I like to go to Fort Lauderdale in the Hollywood area, but to drive from Fort Lauderdale to Hollywood, you have to drive through this crazy area of like 1 hour hotels, and you can see just people walking on the sidewalks with their shopping carts, or their, just the homeless. And it's it's such a discrepancy. And the attitude, like the politics that come out of Florida just favors the rich so much, and is so elitist, and is so racist, and is so homophobic and transphobic, that they've got this massive community of people that are underserved. And it's like, it reminds me of almost like the third world country, where you've got the super rich right there against, like, it's like when I went to Mumbai in India, you've got these beautiful, gorgeous, high rise, you know, buildings for these rich, businesses and wealthy, business owners. And then, like, literally in the alley next to it is a piece of cardboard leaned up against the building where somebody lives and is taking a bath in a bucket in the street. Um, it kind of reminds me of that. Like, that's what I think of when I drive through Florida.
Okay. Um, yeah, Florida unfortunately doesn't get much love for anything other than its weather.
Yeah. I mean, my second choice would be Ohio, just because we're not much better. We're kind of a shit show ourselves at this point. It's like, I feel like, as a Columbus resident, if I go outside that kind of 270 bubble in Columbus, then I feel like I'm in a different state, or in a different country, or it's a totally different culture when you're in a city in Ohio versus when you are in rural Ohio. And there is a lot of rural Ohio. And I spent a lot of time, for my last job, working in rural parts of Ohio, and it's a shit show. I mean, the people are wonderful, just that it's so many. There's a lot of racism and a lot of homophobia. And I have a different perspective on gun rights, having met a lot of those individuals, but um, it's just a different culture. It's so culturally different that, in order to have laws that apply to the entire state, because our situation and our circumstances are so different within the cities and outside in the country, that it's hard to make these blanket rules for everybody. So
For any listeners who are not familiar with Columbus, Ohio geography, I would just point out that I'm sitting
yeah.
slightly outside of the 270 bubble in wonderful little Westerville. Um,
Yeah.
in any
Only
case,
by like blocks. By blocks.
yeah, mile, maybe mile
Maybe
and
a
a half.
mile. Maybe a mile. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Westerville exactly counts as outside the bubble, though. Westerville may be like the last um, civilization before you're outside the bubble.
Right, right, right. I mean, and the city's expanding. I mean, the city's supposed
Sure.
to grow in the next 15 to 20 years. It's supposed to grow to um it's supposed to grow by like 1 million people. So, it's going to keep expanding. And that's the nice thing about the city, is that we're, one of the few that's not surrounded by water. Like Cincinnati, they're kind of locked in by water, and Cleveland's kind of locked in by water, but we don't have really a body of water to keep us from expanding. So we're just going to keep growing.
Yeah. Yeah. When was the last time you were truly happy?
I mean, I feel like I'm truly happy quite a bit. Um, I went through a little bit of a funk, like December and January of this year. Just like, I don't know. It was kind of springing from a lot of different things that were going on with me, but um, so last night we officially launched our business, and like I said earlier, it's kind of a wine and art experience. And I'm an introvert. You put me in a room full of strangers, and I will stand in the corner and wait for somebody to come talk to me and have a meaningful discussion. And I will struggle to talk about the weather or what a great outfit you have, but I'm terrible at small talk and crave meaningful conversation. However, I thrive in front of a crowd. Like I love, I don't like, I am not afraid of public speaking. I'm not afraid of standing in front of a group and talking about something that I'm knowledgeable about. And last night, I love talking about wine. And last night I got to stand up and in front of a group of people with my business partner and talk about wine and talk about different areas and regions and winemaking processes and different notes on the wine. And up there in those moments when I was having these discussions and teaching people and like watching them connecting the dots with the wines that they like and the wines that they drink and kind of answering their questions and engaging them in conversation about wine, it was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it was just a really beautiful moment that because we're just starting this and it's a very exciting time for me. So I would probably say last night around 7:30 I was just like in a bubble of joy.
That's awesome.
Mm,
I'm so glad you and your business partner have been able to launch that,
yeah.
because you've been speaking for as long as I've known you.
Yeah.
Really,
We've been
you've been
planning.
talking about it.
Yeah. We've been planning it. Yeah.
What is your favorite word in any language?
Are we allowed to curse?
Yeah, you are. I mean, this
Probably.
series has become explicit very quickly.
I've been prone to say fuck a lot, and I use it the way the Smurfs use Smurf in the right, with the right audience. I mean, I try to temper it, especially in Christian circles where people don't appreciate it as much. But I've been known to drop f bombs with the art and flair of Charles Dickens. I can alliterate. I can make it useful in any sentence. I can use it as a noun, as a verb, as an adverb, as an adjective. I just feel like it's a really great word. And for some reason, when you say it, you feel like you're just like releasing stress. And yeah, sorry, that's horrible that that's one of my favorite words. But yeah, that's up there. Although I will say, last night when we were giving our talk, I was talking about Rhone Valley wines, and there's some kind of a bacterial contamination that can get into wines in that region, and it creates a smell that is lovingly known as barnyard funk. And I included that in my talk last night because I really love saying barnyard funk. I feel like it should be like a band name, Barnyard Funk.
It reminds me of there's a oolong tea that is described as duck shit.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Exactly.
Um, you are also now the second person on this series of this podcast, and also a returner, I might add, who has said that their favorite word was fuck.
It's a great word. It's
I mean,
it's so useful.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I may have to introduce the two of you now. Um, should toilet paper hang over or under?
This is really funny that you asked this question because I have always been an over the roll person. And about 6 months ago, my niece moved in with us and stays with us. And when she puts toilet paper on the roll, she does it under. And in the beginning, I was really frustrated, but I was like, oh, I find that it actually tears a little easier if it's under, but I can't bring myself to do it. I am an over the roll person. I feel like if it's under the roll, you don't have control of it. And it could just go all willy nilly because you can't see it because it's not there flopping over for everybody to see. So I'm an over the roll person.
Amen to that. What was the most defining moment of your life to date?
Hmm. Wow, that's a hard one. I've had a couple. I've had a couple that really stuck out. The one that comes to mind is probably my college graduation. Um, I was older when I graduated from college. I was a good kid all through high school and got good grades and got accepted to college right out of high school and did horribly just, I partied hard and, had a lot of fun, but my grades were terrible. So I dropped out and I worked for several years until I realized, I really wanted to go back to school and do a little bit more, and just have more of a challenging career. So, I had to kind of pull myself up by the bootstraps. I was living by myself in an apartment. I had to find my own funding. I had to find my own grants. I had to get my own loans. I had to make my own money to pay for it. I got a bunch of scholarships. Um, and when I graduated, I remember thinking that like towards the end of my senior year, I remember thinking something's going to happen that I'm just going to like drop the ball, because I've dropped the ball on so many things in my life. And I was 29 when I graduated from college, and I remember that last semester thinking I'm going to like not get around to turning in a form, or not get around to submitting a document, or there's something I wasn't going to get around to doing, and everybody else is going to graduate and I was going to be like, yeah, I'll get around to it, and then just never actually finish. But I remember the day that I walked in to the one office, we had to, fill in, like, have this document that we had to submit to, qualify for graduation. And I remember my friend and I dropping it off, and I was like, I actually did it. I dropped off the form. And I remember saying, is there anything else I need to do to graduate? And they were like, no, you're all set. Like, unless you like suddenly fail a bunch of classes, but which I wasn't. I was on the dean's list. So um, I remember graduating from college. My father had passed away a year before, so he wasn't around to see me actually finish it.
Mm.
My mom was there. My brother was there. My aunt came from Maryland, and um, it was a big moment for me to actually finish something. And it was the first time I had really felt like I had accomplished something. And I remember thinking, okay, I did this, what's next? What else can I do? And it was funny because the pattern resumed. I went to grad school and didn't finish, and left after 2 years empty handed. And but it just wasn't for me. But yeah, that was probably the one thing I was just so proud of myself for actually completing and seeing it through and getting it done, that it was kind of a life-changing moment for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Cats or dogs?
I feel like this would be an easy question. Um,
Yeah, I thought it would be for you.
yeah, right. I have a dog, but I've always been a cat person until I met my husband. So
Mm.
I'm actually a cat person, but so I'm gonna. I have a dog, and I love my dog, and she's a great dog. But and I've my last this she's the third dog in a row. But honestly, I'm a cat person.
Knowing Rosie, I'm a little scared for your safety right now.
I know, right? She's gonna like come tear it in here, like what?
Okay, now for again, what I think is going to be an easy question, although the cats and dogs question didn't go where I was expecting it, so who knows? Ohio State or Michigan?
Ohio State.
Yep, that's what I thought you'd say. What's your favorite type of wine, or your favorite wine? I know nothing about wine, so
Yeah. So really well. My favorite, it changes from season to season. Um, I used to have a joke that white wine is like white shoes. It's only appropriate between Memorial Day and Labor Day. I have since changed that, because the more I understand about wine, the more I like different white wines. And right now, my favorite wine is a Chenin Blanc. It's typically found in the Loire Valley, in the Vouvray region of the Loire Valley, and if I can find a sparkling Chenin Blanc, it's even better. But Chenin Blanc, it's kind of has like this nose of like a bruised apple, like kind of a like real appley, but super ripe, like not like a crisp Granny Smith apple, as a nose like a really ripe apple, like almost bruised. And some of them almost have like a wet wool nose to it. That's
hmm.
one of the other tells. But yeah, I love a nice chilled Chenin Blanc on a hot day.
Okay. What's your favorite cocktail?
Probably an old fashioned. I do like my bourbon.
I can get behind that.
Mhm.
Describe your relationship with nature.
Um, Not great. I was the kid that was always, I grew up in the early 80s. So it was like, I grew up in the generation where you go play outside and you don't come back inside till dinner time. And I remember friends having bare feet and me hating bare feet because I didn't like the way that the grass would itch and I'd be afraid I'd step on a bee. And, if I was walking on a rock, it would hurt. And I didn't like sitting in grass because it was itchy. And then as I got older and more knowledgeable, it was like, I don't like walking through the woods because what if there's a snake? What if a tick falls out of a tree? Like, I'm not one of those people that really communes with nature. I would like, my people, like, I am probably descended from a cave dweller because I probably loved living in a cave and just like would probably like feng shui the rocks and just really enjoy living inside. um the only nature that I can commune with is an ocean with a beach, and it has to be warm, hot, soft sand and a nice like the Atlantic, like the Jersey Shore is kind of, that's my only outdoor happy place. I really love sitting on a nice hot beach with the smell of your sunscreen and the smell of the salt air and the sun beating down, and going from that hot sitting on the beach to the cooling off in the ocean and jumping in the waves. And when you wash your hair that night, your hair's all soft because it's been all the salt conditioning and the way you've been in the beach all day. But that's, I'm not like, I'm not a hiker. Like if you say, hey, do you want to go on a hike, my answer will automatically be no. So yeah, I'm not a nature person.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I can appreciate nature, but
Mhm.
I would much rather be looking at it
Yes.
from a covered porch or
Drive
something
me
else.
through in a car.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Um, or looking over something, or just sitting inside on a snowy day and
Yes.
watching it snow,
Yes, I love that with a
or
hot
a
cup
rainy
of
day or
coffee.
something.
Yes. Hot cup of coffee and a fluffy blanket, and I will sit and watch the snow all day or like watching the leaves fall.
Yep.
I love, I think fall colors are beautiful. As I drive around my neighborhood, German Village has really pretty streets and a lot of trees, and we have these fall streets, or in the spring when the Bradford pears are all in bloom at the same time. It's like Washington and the cherry blossoms, and driving through the streets is beautiful. But I might walk for like 10 minutes, but I'm not going to go on a hike.
Yeah. Same. What is the most profound or defining book that you have read? And again, multiple options are allowed.
Defining book. It's hard because I read mostly fiction. um
Well, profound or defining. So,
yeah, profound. You know what book like has always stuck with me, and I feel like this is going to be really like a silly response, but there's a book called Memoirs of a Geisha that was
yep,
really popular about 20 years ago,
yep,
and I was obsessed with that book. And I didn't become necessarily obsessed with geisha culture or anything like that. Like I know a lot of people really got into, like, there was a whole like kind of, you know trendy thing with the geisha culture after that book came out. But I just remember that book just struck me so hard. The hardships that some people in really poverty stricken areas will go to, where their parents will literally sell them into slavery to survive, and how her older sister was sold into prostitution, and she was like the lucky one that she got sold into a geisha culture. And even though she was treated much more cruelly, it was still better than what her sister had to deal with. And it ultimately has a really happy ending. um but for some reason that book has always stuck with me. It just, so much about it, like there was the whole thing where they, going through World War II and going into hiding, and that was kind of the end of the geisha culture, the end of its kind of heyday. But understanding that these are not prostitutes, they're companions who are trained to have really witty conversation and to have a talent, like a really exciting musical talent or dance or play an instrument that they can just charm a room, and their whole job is to just be insanely charming and not make you want to have sex with them, but make you almost fall in love with them and just really embrace and appreciate their presence. And I just thought, what a powerful tool is for a woman to just command a presence like that in a culture that's so male dominated, and where women are so kind of, subservient, that the women are trained to be kind of the witty, the entertainers, the conversationalist, and kind of that role in like Japanese corporate culture. So
Thank you for that. It's interesting you bring up that book. If you remember, at the same time, Snow Falling on Cedars also came out.
yeah. Hmm.
Those were two books that my mom was always a book of the month person, still is.
Hmm.
And she would always leave the books out if my sister or I were interested. We, read at a fairly high level our whole lives. But those two books got locked away, and for a significant portion of my childhood became these books I really wanted to read, not because I really thought I was interested in their subject matter, but just for some reason my mom determined that these were not books that the kids should be reading.
Everyone wants to read a banned book.
Exactly.
You want to sell it out? Ban it.
Exactly. Who's your favorite drag queen?
Hmm. Well, I'm gonna have to go with the one I know the best, which is Nina West. So, but it's, I don't know. I've seen some really good ones that I didn't wouldn't necessarily remember their names, but I'm a big fan of Nina. Love what she does.
Staying with our hometown girl.
Hmm.
Um, what is the most important punctuation mark in the English language?
The exclamation point, and
Okay.
let me tell you why. Um, my husband and I, when we were both working, he's an architect and works long days, and I was working a corporate job and working very long hours, and I we found ourselves doing a bulk of our important communication via email, like the car needs to be inspected, I need you to pick up eggs for dinner, or we're going to my mother's house for dinner on Saturday. A lot of the important things we were doing through email, and it would hurt my feelings that I would have something exciting happen at work, or, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what just happened. And I'd send him this exciting email and he'd be like, okay. And my husband, if you've ever, for anybody who's ever met him, is a man of few words. And he doesn't really get excited about anything. And I remember, like, we had I don't know if it was a fight or just a really kind of intense discussion about how I just, I was going through a phase where I was feeling underappreciated and just unloved. And he sent me I sent him an email saying, hey, guess what just happened? And he responded, that's great, exclamation point. And I remember being so excited by the exclamation point that I responded, I swear to God, punctuation is going to save our marriage. Because when he responds with appropriate punctuation and not just like a comma or nothing, and he responds with enthusiasm and an exclamation point, I'm just like, oh, he's really excited about it. So
For our listeners, I'm still not 100% sure this mad person exists. I've been told that he exists. I've been told he's a very nice and wonderful person.
very nice man. He just stays in the shadows.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, is it more important to love or be loved?
I think it's more important to love because you can't control being loved. You can try, but it's not something you can control. And I find that if you love, being loved happens kind of, it's born out of loving. Um, if you don't love other people and you don't genuinely love them, they have no reason to love you back. Because if you think about the people that you love in your life, it's probably people that you genuinely feel loved by. And I think it's more important to love, and then being loved is a natural result.
Would you rather be in charge of 10 duck sized horses or one horse sized duck?
10 duck-sized horses, because I think tiny horses would be amazing.
Okay. Fair enough. What is the meaning of life?
getting through it. Um,
Hey, that's fair.
right? I think that, I mean, we have to survive it. You know, I love and am comforted at the idea of an afterlife that's a paradise, but it's like we have to get to that. And I think, just to kind of connect it to your previous question, I think the meaning of life is to love and to be loved and to feel love and to experience love. And I don't just mean like in a marriage. I mean with your family, with your parents, with your children, with your friends, with your community, with with the people who you interact with your coworkers, with your neighbors, with it's just such a huge part. It doesn't cure everything, but it's kind of a balm for a lot of wounds in your life. And I when you can find a community of people who you genuinely love, it that creates an intense amount of joy. And I think that's why I feel a lot of joy and happiness lately. Like your first question, like when was the last time you felt happy? And it's like I feel happiest when I'm surrounded by people that I love, and they surround me because they love me too. And I think that that's just a really awesome place to be.
Amen to that. Well, Sheri, that's the end of the questions I have. Thank you so much for being a good sport with these kind of wacky, kind of profound questions today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Totally. This has been The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilskamp.